Welcome to the orientation for applicants for the 2024 National Center for Systemic Improvement 84.326R grant competition funded by the Office of Special Education Programs and the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services at the U.S. Department of Education. Let me start with some caveats before diving into the content. First, the intent of this presentation is to provide guidance only, and the information contained in this webinar provides a general summary of the information contained in the notice inviting applications, or NIA, and the application package. Therefore, it's imperative that all prospective applicants read the entire NIA, application package, and any additional relevant information. To this end, applicants are encouraged to listen to a more general webinar entitled Applying for the Office of Special Education Programs and Discretionary Grants for an orientation to the overall process. The webinar can be found at osepideas.work.org, the same page that houses the link to this recording. Today I will cover the following areas: award information, selection criteria, key terms, purpose of the OSEP T&D program, absolute priority and purpose, application requirements, and general requirements. So first I'm going to cover general award information. So who's eligible to apply for this competition? State education agencies, local education agencies, institutions of higher education, other public agencies, private nonprofit organizations, freely associated states in outlying areas, Indian tribes or tribal organizations, and for-profit organizations. Project funding. OSEP plans to fund one application up to $6.25 million per year for each of the 5 years. Please note, this is only an estimate. The application must include a budget for all 60 months. And again, one award. Application timelines. Please be aware of the timelines. The notice published in the Federal Register on March 21st, 2024. All applications are due on or before May 20th, 2024, before 11:59 and 59 seconds in the evening Eastern Time. We highly advise to not wait until the last date to submit your application to avoid any possible technical difficulties on either end. We make the following formatting and page limit recommendations to ease the work of the reviewers. A page is 8.5 by 11 on one side only with 1-inch margins. Double space all text in the application narrative, including titles, headings, footnotes, quotations, reference citations, and captions, as well as the text in charts, tables, figures, graphs, and screenshots. Use a font that is 12 point or larger, Times New Roman, Courier, Courier New, or Arial is recommended. We also recommend that you limit the application narrative to no more than 70 pages. A few terms of definitions that I want to highlight. The first is universal general technical assistance, and it means technical assistance and information provided to independent users through their own initiative, resulting in minimal interactions with TA Center staff and including one-time invited or offered conference presentations by TA Center staff. This category of TA also includes information on products such as newsletters, guidebooks, or research synthesis downloaded from the TA Center's website by independent users. Brief communications by TA center staff with recipients, either by telephone or email, are also considered universal general TA. Another term is targeted specialized TA, which means TA services based on needs common to multiple recipients and not extensively individualized. A relationship is established between the TA recipient and one or more TA center staff. This category of TA includes one-time labor-intensive events, such as facilitating strategic planning or hosting regional or national conferences. It can also include episodic, less labor-intensive events that extend over a period of time, such as facilitating a series of conference calls on single or multiple topics that are designed around the needs of the recipients. Facilitating communities of practice can also be considered targeted specialized TA. The third term is intensive sustained TA, which means TA services often provided on-site and requiring a stable, ongoing relationship between the TA center staff and the TA recipient. TA services are defined as negotiated series of activities designed to reach a valued outcome. This category of TA should result in changes to policy, program, practice, or operations that support increased recipient capacity or improved outcomes at one or more systems level. And finally, the term third-party evaluator. A third-party evaluator is an independent and impartial program evaluator who is contracted by the grantee to conduct an objective evaluation of the project. This evaluator must not have participated in the development or implementation of any project activities except for the evaluation activities, nor have any financial interest in the outcome of the evaluation. Next, I will provide an overview of the purpose of this priority. This grant will be funded under the OSEP Technical Assistance and Dissemination Program. The purpose of the TA&D program is to promote academic achievement and improve results for children with disabilities by providing TA, supporting model demonstration projects, disseminating useful information, and implementing activities that are supported by scientifically based research. For 2024, we plan to support one absolute priority, which is the National Center for Systemic Improvement. OSEP will fund one successful application. This project, the National Center for Systemic Improvement, will provide sustained TA to SEAs to support them to effectively implement IDEA, build the capacity of state directors and state-level staff to meet the requirements of IDEA, and build statewide systems to advance educational equity, mitigate SCA turnover, and improve academic and functional outcomes for children and youth with disabilities. The department identified 5 outcomes to be achieved by this project. These outcomes are referenced throughout the application package. 1, increase capacity of SEAs to support LEAs in schools in selecting and implementing evidence-based practices and high leverage practices within frameworks supported by evidence that drive effective learning experiences, instructions, interventions, and services and supports to improve educational results and functional outcomes for children with disabilities. 2, to increase the capacity of SEAs to use data to evaluate, analyze, refine, strengthen, and, if applicable, redesign their general supervision systems to ensure all components are reasonably designed and inform continuous improvement efforts. 3, to increase capacity of SEAs to implement their general supervision systems to support LEAs and schools to effectively implement IDEA and deliver equitable and effective IDEA services. 4, to increase the capacity of SEAs to use data to engage in continuous improvement that builds more equitable, effective, and sustainable state systems to improve educational results and functional outcomes for children and youth with disabilities and their families. And number 5, To increase capacity of SEAs to meaningfully engage diverse state and local administrators, educators, community members, and family, including those historically marginalized by the education system in the decision-making process. Final section of this webinar will cover the application requirements. As part of the process of making funding recommendations, external reviewers will judge and score the quality of the application using selection criteria for each section as shown by the points allocated to each of the narrative. Significance is 10 points, quality of project services is 35 points, quality of project evaluation, 20 points, adequacy of resources and quality of personnel, project personnel, 15 points, quality of management plan, 20 points for a total of 100 points. So, as part of the process for making funding recommendations, external reviewers will judge and score the quality of their application using selection criteria for each section as shown by the points allocated to each section of the narrative. As I just explained, the application package contains information on the sub-criteria within each selection criteria, and applicants are strongly encouraged to read these carefully when preparing the application narrative and use them to organize the sections of the application narrative. Under the significant section of the application narrative, applicants must address the extent to which specific gaps or weaknesses in services, infrastructure, or opportunities have been identified and will be addressed by the proposed project, including the nature and magnitude of those gaps or weaknesses, and the importance or magnitude of the results or outcomes likely to be attained by the proposed project. Under quality of project services, the narrative should demonstrate how the applicant will ensure equal access and treatment for members of groups that have been traditionally underrepresented based on race, color, national origin, gender, age, or disability, achieve its goals, objectives, and intended outcomes by providing measurable intended outcomes and a logic model, and use a conceptual framework to develop project plans and activities. Also, ensure services are based on current research and make use of evidence-based practices. In addition, under quality of project services, the narrative should demonstrate how the applicant will develop products and provide services that are of high quality and sufficient intensity and duration to achieve the intended outcomes of the project, including how the proposed project intends to develop and identify products, the approach to universal or general TA, the approach to targeted specialized TA, the approach to intensive sustained TA. In addition, the narrative should demonstrate how the applicant will develop products and implement services that maximize efficiency, develop a dissemination plan, and describe how the applicant will systematically distribute information, products, and services to promote awareness and use of centers' products and services to varied intended audiences using a variety of dissemination strategies. Under quality of project evaluation, the applicant must include an evaluation plan for the project developed in consultation with a third-party evaluator. The evaluation plan must articulate formative and summative evaluation questions, including important process and outcome evaluation questions. These questions should be related to the project's proposed logic model. Describe how progress in and fidelity to implementation and project outcomes will be measured to answer the evaluation questions. Describe strategies for analyzing data and how data will be collected. Provide a timeline for conducting the evaluation and assignments for completing the plan. The timeline must indicate that the data will be available annually for the annual performance report and at the end of year 2 for 4th and 5th year consideration. In addition, dedicate sufficient funds in each budget year to cover the costs associated with implementation of the evaluation plan by a third-party evaluator. Adequacy of resources and quality of project personnel. In this section, the narrative should demonstrate how the proposed project will encourage applicants for employment from persons who are members of groups that have been traditionally underrepresented based on race, color, national origin, gender, age, or disability as appropriate. The proposed key project personnel, consultant, and subcontractors have the qualifications and experience to carry out the proposed activities and achieve the project's intended outcomes. The applicant and any key partners have adequate resources to carry out the proposed activities, and the proposed costs are reasonable in relation to the anticipated results and benefits. In the quality of management plan section, the narrative should demonstrate how the proposed management plan will ensure that the project's intended outcomes will be achieved on time and within budget. Allocate key project personnel and any consultants and subcontractors to achieve the project's intended outcomes, and how these allocations are appropriate and adequate to achieve the project's intended outcomes. Ensure products and services provided are of high quality, relevancy, and useful to recipients. In addition, the management plan should address how it will benefit from a diversity of perspectives, including those of eligible children or students, families, educators, TA providers, researchers, and policymakers, among others, in its development and operation. The project will maintain a high-quality website with easy-to-navigate design that meets government and industry standards. Ensure annual project progress in meeting project goals is posted on the project's website. Assist OSEP with the transfer of pertinent resources and products as needed, and maintain continuity of services during transition to a new award at the end of the award period as needed. Application requirements. In addition to the narrative, review of applications includes review of the application and general requirements specified in the notice inviting applications. For this competition, 326R, applicants are asked to address the following requirements by including a personnel loading chart and timelines in Appendix A to illustrate the management plan described in the narrative. In the budget section, budget for attendance at several required meetings and conferences, such as a 1.5-day kickoff meeting in DC or virtually within 30 days after receipt of the award, a 2.5-day project conference in DC or virtually annually, and other meetings specified in the notice. Also include in the budget an annual set-aside of 5% to support emerging needs consistent with the project's purpose. And lastly, under application requirements, a 1-day intensive 3+2 review meeting in Washington, D.C. In this next session, I will cover some general information relating to submitting an application. Once again, please refer to the notice for additional information. Please note that applications must be submitted electronically in the grants.gov system. See grants.gov submission procedures and tips for applicants included in the application package. We strongly recommend that you do not wait until the last day to submit your application. Grants.gov will put a date, time stamp on your application and then process it after it is fully uploaded. The time it takes to upload an application will vary depending on several factors, including the size of the application, the speed of your internet connection, and the time it takes Grant.gov to process the application, which will vary as well. Further, if Grants.gov rejects your application, you will need to resubmit successfully to Grants.gov before 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on the deadline date. If there are reasons why an applicant cannot submit using Grants.gov, the applicant must follow the information contained in the application package precisely. Please note, applications cannot be submitted by email and must be submitted prior to the deadline of 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. on May 20th, 2024. Also, please note, applications are uploaded and then submitted. It is a two-step process, so it takes longer than you think it will. We strongly encourage applicants to submit all narratives and attachments in PDF only, non-modifiable format. Some submission tips. In order to make sure that your application is submitted on time and correctly, please register as early as possible in grants.gov and start the application process. Do not wait until you have the application ready to register. Grants.gov will create a workspace for applicants to submit the sections of the application over time. If you are already registered, make sure your registration is current. Submit early, a day or more in advance if possible. Should there be any problems with the grants.gov system, submitting early will allow you the time to correct the problem and resubmit before the deadline. Verify that the submission is okay. Grants.gov will send applicants notification that the submission was on time and validated, so applicants should make sure that they receive that confirmation and not assume the submission was okay. Here are some additional tips for applying for this grant program. Pay attention to the maximum funding levels for the grant as contained in the notice. Awards will not be made for amounts higher than the published amounts. Following the recommended organization, page limits, spacing, and font sizes to facilitate the application review process, and applicants should strongly consider following the recommendations. PDF files make it easier for the system to put together different parts of the application into one application that reviewers can more easily read and follow. The grants.gov submission procedures and tips for applicants in the application package can be extremely helpful for submitting the application in grants.gov. Ask if you have questions. Contact myself, Perry Williams. In eligible applications. So once received, all applications are screened to determine eligibility for a competition. Those found eligible for review will be reviewed as described above. Those ineligible will not be reviewed. Some common reasons that an applicant may be ruled ineligible are because an application was submitted more than once, and the application was validated more than once, so duplicate applications are received. In that case, the last application submitted will be considered, and previous applications will be considered duplicates and therefore ineligible for review. There are two additional reasons why an application may not be eligible and things to avoid. These include: first, all applications received after the published deadline will not be eligible for funding. Second, applications that do not address the priority will also not be eligible for funding. For example, an application proposing to build a school, purchase equipment for a classroom, establish an after-school program, or provide a tutoring service for children with disabilities will not be eligible since it is not the purpose of this priority. So here are some contacts for information for your additional specific questions. We look forward to your application and a healthy competition for this competitive grant opportunity. I can be reached at perry.williams@ed.gov, 202-987-0138. If you need to reach the grants.gov support desk, it's grants.gov. Email at support@grants.gov. The phone number is 1-800-518-4726. There's also a link to grants.gov training. The link is https://grants-portal.psc.gov/welcome.aspx?pt=grant. Thank you.